So I saw the conversation going around about which bending class in Avatar: The Last Airbender is the weakest. For some reason, people took it upon themselves to say airbending of all classes were the weakest because they were eradicated off of the face of the earth. No. No. We're not going to do that. That's a lie. Airbending by far is not the weakest class. First of all, I'm just going to start by saying that. So I'm going to go into this video by stating in order, or somewhat in order, which ones I think are weakest to strongest. I want to go also by nation, and I want to go purely benders, who I think is the weakest and who I think is the strongest, or who's in the middle, whatever. Now, let me just say this before we start. In a world that's so perfectly balanced, it's actually kind of tough to pick out who's the weakest and who's the strongest. This is all just my personal opinion. I don't think any class really outweighs each other, or who can say definitively who's on top and who's on the bottom and who's just trash or nothing like that. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses in this perfectly structured power system. So I'm just speaking on personally what I believe to be the weakest, quote unquote, and the strongest. Nobody necessarily outclasses anyone here. If you run into a top bender from any of these elemental classes, it's up for you. It's over. So with that being said, moving forward, just keep that in mind. Nobody really outweighs the other, so much so in this story. So there. Now first, we can start off by nation. By nation, I would say, honestly, the strongest nation I would have to say has to be Firebenders. Not because of their skills and what they can do necessarily. I think not only do they outnumber all of the other classes, they're just the most aggressive. I mean, obviously, Firebenders are the ones that threw the balance off for the entire bending world. I mean, they completely eradicated an entire nation off the face of the earth. So I had this discussion with somebody. Firebenders, the problem with Firebenders is that if you put all four benders in a room, they all had their own corners. Firebender, Airbender, Waterbender, Earthbenders. If they were all trapped in a room and it was whoever walks out alive is whoever walks out alive, do I think the Firebenders would walk out of that fight alive out of everyone? No. I absolutely believe the Firebenders would be the first ones to swing. That's the problem. The Firebenders are just so aggressive that when it comes to war strategy for a nation and a conglomerate, I think they're the most terrifying. They're the most aggressive. They're the most outwardly willing to go to war for whatever reason. They're the most willing to get into a fight. Even if I don't believe their military strategy is as strategic as maybe other benders, Firebenders are going to be the ones that will outright assault you. Assault any nation, assault any character, whoever they believe it. Yo, especially if they get the comment, GG. Now, second, in my opinion, second strongest nation, I would have to say is the Airbenders. I mean, the Airbenders are pacifists by nature, but and this is the problem that I had with people saying Airbenders are the weakest. Yo, just because you don't want to fight, that doesn't make you the weakest. If I say, yo, I don't want to fight, but yo, don't push me. The problem with, and we're gonna talk about this later with another bending class, but Airbenders, they're not willing to get into a fight. I mean, fighting and training is really their lives. They're monks, so by nature, fighting isn't their first call. But Airbenders as a nation, I think they're just so strategic in their way of fighting. I think that they're just they move so much better as a unit. They just don't feel the need to always fight like that. Airbenders wouldn't be the ones to start the fight, but they would probably be the ones to finish it. They train every single day, like that's their lives, like that's what they do. So no, I don't. By nationwide, Airbenders can't be the weakest in my opinion. They may not want to fight, but they will if they need to. Now we move on to Earthbenders. Earthbenders definitely took a lot of L's in the Avatar universe. I would not personally say they're the weakest. Physically and mentally in both categories, I would say Earthbenders are actually pretty solid. They're just a solid class overall. Earthbenders, were actually one of the few nations that actually tried to fight back against the Firebenders when they were ready to take over the world. So I personally don't believe Earthbenders could be the weakest. While they definitely were suppressed during the events that we saw in Avatar: The Last Airbender, they actually will stand their ground for the most part as a nation, and they will move accordingly as a nation. I just think that the events leading up to it, I think they were in a position where they were just put in an unfortunate position. I don't have much to say, but I don't think Earthbenders could be the weakest feasibly. But who I think is the weakest nation overall, to me, has to be water. Waterbending has taken the most L's in the show. It's ridiculous. Waterbenders, I think they underestimate themselves too much. Waterbenders, and we're going to talk about this when we get into individual benders. Waterbenders has the most buffs. They have the most things going for them, but they are in a fight for sure the weakest. Military wise, they're the weakest nation. Airbenders don't want to fight, but they will if they need to. Waterbenders under no circumstances want to fight. They don't engage in battle. Waterbenders, you have to literally push them to their absolute limit before they tap into whatever they need to do to fight. And that's really the problem. Waterbenders were slowly taken out in their own territory by Firebenders. How often did they even fight back? Waterbenders took too many L's in the show. It's ridiculous. So for me, in my mind, I would say Waterbenders are the weakest nation. Now, if we're going into bending specifically, individually, I would not say Waterbenders are the weakest. Like I said, Waterbenders just have way too many buffs. I mean, we're talking a full moon buff. We're talking even when it rains, they get a buff. And this is the thing about Waterbenders, right? Waterbenders' quote unquote weakness is that if there's not any water around, if they don't have the resource to bend, it's up for them. If we're being completely honest, think about how many places in the world have absolutely no water. It would be really hard as a waterbender to not have any resources around you. Think about everything that includes water. There's water vapor in the air we breathe. At least 70% of the world is covered in water. There's water in the ground that we walk on, the grass that we step on. There's water not only in waterbenders themselves, but whatever bender you're fighting, there's water in them. That's why I couldn't be a waterbender, because the moment I run into you and we get into a fight, the moment you sweat, I'm gonna rip that sweat off of you and you're gonna dehydrate as a bender. The fight's over before it even began. GG. Running into a waterbender just randomly, wherever I'm traveling or whatever, a waterbender would be one of the scariest benders to interact with just randomly, because you don't know what they have in their tool bag. You don't know what resource they could not only pull off of you or surrounding you. But waterbenders also, they just, like I said, they have too many buffs. If I get into a fight with a waterbender and it randomly starts raining, I'm leaving. I'm not engaging in that fight. Not to mention, waterbenders have at their disposal, other than earthbenders, I guess. Well, airbenders too. Damn. But waterbenders have just so much resource that they can pull from. And they could do it in such a sneaky way. I mean, the other benders, I'm going to talk about that in a second, but a waterbender could spit and make a bullet or make an ice spear and shoot that straight through your chest. They can make 1 million of those. Yo, Katara was finna kill that man. She was, bruh. And it was raining. Yo.
My mistake, original gangster. No.
Next, let's talk earthbenders. Now, this is a common theme between all the other benders, which I'm slowly going to get to in a second. Earthbenders are strategic fighters by nature because they can shift the ground that you stand on and affect your stance to the point where bending for you is going to be super difficult. Earthbenders are also just the biggest tank class. As an earthbender, you take damage a lot more effectively than all the other benders. You have the best defense, I would say, as an earthbender. They're not outwardly as aggressive as firebenders, but they definitely have really good battle sense. They're able to build barriers around themselves. They're able to build barriers around you and enclose you in whatever space they want you in. they're able to manipulate the fight in such a way that it's really tricky to run into an Earthbender. I mean, we know Toph is the best one, but if we're being honest, if I run into a common Earthbender, there's a good chance they can fight. And on top of that, yo, I don't know if you've ever been hit by a boulder moving at like 40 miles per hour, but in Avatar, they make that shit look like it's just whatever. Yo, that shit would hurt. You know what I'm talking? Like, that shit would hurt, bro. Like, and then of course, if we're talking about metal bending as well, metal bending is such a good secondary class. And if you want to throw molten lava in there too, if you want to, that's perfectly fine. But Earthbenders, to me, individually as a bender, nah, they're probably the second strongest. Now, Airbenders, I don't have much to say. I mean, if you run into an Airbender and he's vicious enough, he can suck the air out of your body and GG. He literally can suck the air out of your lungs and you're done. Yo, they could suck the air out of your body and or suffocate you with enough air pressure and you're done. GG. An Airbender number one is probably the one I'm most afraid to run into, because an Airbender, if they're vicious enough, they can get you out of the way quick. Think about how long you can go without breathing before it's over. 30 seconds for most of us, maybe. Also, Airbenders, on top of that, they're the most elusive fighter. Like, Airbenders are just too dodgy. Like when Aang was fighting that one firebender general, and yo, Aang Aang made him so mad that he destroyed his entire fleet around him to try to hit him. He didn't hit him not one time. And like that 5-minute exchange, however long that was, he destroyed everything around them, trying just to hit Aang one time, and he was not successful. But Airbenders, I would not I don't even know how the Firebenders got that shit off. I don't know how they won that fight. Airbenders are way too... I understand that they had the comet. Airbenders don't even really need buffs. That's how strong they naturally are. So for me, in my opinion, the weakest benders would have to be Firebenders. They would have to be. Firebenders, the way I see them, in my opinion, are a purely offensive class. They're the assault class. Like, Firebenders by nature are really good fighters, but they lack a lot of defense. And that's really the biggest weakness for Firebenders. Yes, they do have lightning, and if that shit hits you, I mean, you're out. But I think the problem is every other elemental bending class that I've mentioned previous, they all have a natural way to use that element against you. Like I said, waterbenders, like I mentioned, not only have too many natural buffs, I mean, the rain, the full moon, the healing factor, blood bending, if they are useful enough to actually get that off. Earthbenders use their element to shift your stance, and they're not only that, they're the most defensive class. Earthbenders are hard to take down because they have so much, they're just too solid. They have too much defense, and it's too difficult to actually do damage to an Earthbender. Airbenders are too elusive. Like I said, they can literally suffocate you with the air that you breathe or rip that shit out of your body. Firebenders don't really have the natural capability to do that type of stuff that all the other benders can. Firebenders' biggest asset is their desire to fight and their outward aggression. That's really the biggest thing that they have, but they lack a lot of defense. I don't think they're as elusive as Airbenders are. They're just, like I said, in a room full of people that maybe don't want to fight as much as them, they have the advantage just because they want to fight outwardly more than everybody else in the room. I just think Firebenders have to be careful with who they engage with. I mean, if we're being completely honest, Firebenders are being carried by Iroh, Ozai, Azula, Zuko, Zhao, few other people that I can't really think of right now. But if you think about it, everybody else in the Fire Nation is just jobbers. Like, every other Firebender we see, they're getting their ass whooped. Like, in an Avatar video game, Firebenders are the jobber NPC characters in the game. So in my opinion, I would say nation-wise, Waterbenders would have to be the weakest, but individually as benders, I would say Fire Nation, in my opinion, has to be the weakest bender class. But nah, that's my personal opinion. For some reason, I haven't seen people actually make a video assessment about this type of stuff, just kind of random forums and stuff. I didn't read into them too much. Once I tried to look up videos to see if people thought what I thought, I just decided, you know what, I haven't really seen anybody make this video, so I want to make this video myself. Yeah, let me know what y'all think down below. I think that'd be interesting to engage in the conversation. Maybe y'all think Airbenders are the weakest for whatever reason. I can't co-sign that, big brother, but I respect what you do. So let me know down below, like and subscribe, do whatever. I'm gone.